I'm Dr. Kongsak Tanphaichitr. We'll be talking about suffering, or Dukkha in Pali. Best translation could be dis-ease. Can also be conflict, stress, unsatisfactoriness, or even unhappiness or suffering. It's a driving force that influenced Prince Siddhartha over 2,600 years ago to renunciate and seek for the truth to free himself from suffering. And finally, he succeeded through his enlightenment, and he was compassionate enough to teach mankind to do the same, which we can end or free suffering from suffering through practicing the middle path. So, in the Four Ultimate Truths, basically, this is what he attained enlightenment upon, or dependent arising, which is its exemplified form, consists of a rising pathway, like the cause of suffering, the second noble truth, cause the first noble truth. Cause of suffering, basically from my reaching outward with desire, liking or disliking, and the result of it is the first noble truth is suffering, result from my reaching outward and clinging to self-concept. Like the Buddha stated that it's the five aggregates of clinging are suffering, as in brief of the first noble truth. And it's the cause and effect. And the third noble truth is Nirodha, or the end of suffering. Result from the mind, seeing mind clearly, resuming the norm of equanimous mind, the true mind. And the fourth noble truth is the middle path towards the end of suffering. So basically, caused by my seeing the mind clearly through mindful awareness, guarding the mind. So if you can see it's a cause and effect. That's why sometimes it's called law of causation. Second noble truth, first noble truth is the arising pathway, and the fourth noble truth and the third noble truth is the receding or cessation pathway, ceasing pathway. First noble truth is to be comprehended and not to eradicate. You need to eradicate the cause of suffering. Or second noble truth need to be eradicated so that will free yourself from suffering without the cause to end up with suffering. And the fourth noble truth is to be developed. Third noble truth is to be realized in Nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness. So Buddha described a person consists of form, which is body, also sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought, considered to be form. And then feeling, perception, thought formation or mental impulse, and consciousness. Feeling, perception, and thought formation are mental activities. Allow you to see or track or trace consciousness, the mind, because mind is formless, but you can track it down through feeling, perception, or thought formation. So these five aggregates or five groups of existence form a person or a being. And Buddha described in the first noble truth that to be born is suffering, to age is suffering, to die is suffering. Depart from loved ones is suffering. Did not get what one wants is suffering. Got what one doesn't want is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, grief, despair, suffering. Then he said, in short, the five aggregates of clinging are suffering because you subscribe to the self-image, self-concept, self-image hologram, which is not truly there, only transiently occurring when mind interact with the six sense sphere, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts, temporarily existing as dealing with those phenomena as a self, temporarily exists, but not a permanent, no true permanent self existing. It's but unstable, unbearable, uncontrollable, or impermanent, imperfect, and selfless in nature, or not self. That's why, in brief, the five aggregates of clinging as self are suffering. That's the first noble truth. And this follows the three universal marks of existence of impermanence, unstable, imperfection, unbearable, and not self or selfless in nature, uncontrollable. Everything in the universe follows this three universal marks of existence except Nirvana. There's no true permanent self entity, no being, no person, no self, no you, no me. It's all conceptual, suppositional. It's only transiently happen with contact with sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought, temporarily existing, and then it resolves because it's selfless in nature. Over 100 years of searching, neuroscientists haven't found any place in the brain where self is located. So suffering in Buddhism divided into two major categories. First is based on state of suffering, and the second aspect is on attitude of suffering. Basically, this on the first aspect is a natural pain. It's a natural phenomenon of sabhava dukkha. It's as if it's the first arrow that hit you. It's the first part of the noble truth that deal with the physical aspect, like to be born suffering, to age suffering, get sick, physical ailment is suffering, and to die suffering. Suffering is the constant suffering that is common to everyone who has to face, such as birth, old age, sickness, and death. The second aspect of suffering is mental suffering, cetasika dukkha. It's the second arrow, the second part of the first noble truth. The Buddha described as feeling sad or in the unfulfillment, like depart from your loved ones, didn't get what you want, or got what one doesn't want. This is mental suffering. This is suffering is mental suffering caused by feeling such as sadness and unfulfillment. Just to describe the first noble truth, first part of the first noble truth, to be born is suffering, to age is suffering, to die is suffering, a physical base. And the second part of the first noble truth is depart from your loved one, physical or mental ailment, did not get what one wants, got what one doesn't want, sorrow, lamentation, grief, despair, are suffering. It's mentally based. So these are the first noble truth. And then he described that in In short, the five aggregates of clinging as self are suffering, because there's no true permanent self there. When you cling to it, that's why you suffer. Also, each aggregate, like form, feeling, perception, thought formation, consciousness, each one is selfless in nature. Nothing worth clinging to. So it's the two arrows that the world is being hit at. The first arrow is a natural pain, or sabhava dukkha, like aging, sickness, and death. Everyone has to face that. Second arrow is mental suffering, cetasika dukkha, like depart from your loved ones, did not get what one wants, got what one doesn't want. It's called cetasika dukkha, mentally created, self-inflicted mental suffering. The enlightened one, including the Buddha, was also hit with the first arrow. You cannot escape the physical pain or natural pain or natural phenomenon. Hit with the first arrow, sabhava dukkha, but also hit with the second arrow, but missed. Not hit with the second arrow, because there's no mental suffering, no cetasika dukkha in enlightenment, including the Buddha, as they catch one's own thought as it arises. So no cause of suffering. So this is from Salatta Sutta. So how does biased perception cause craving to please commit karma or action to please the phantom ego, which is not truly existing? The Buddhists describe how the mind functions through contact, through six sense spheres follow. Through the six sense sphere of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and come in contact with sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought, which activate corresponding consciousness, like eye consciousness when you see sight, ear consciousness when you hear sounds, like you're hearing me now. Nasal consciousness arise and cease with the smell, tongue consciousness with the taste, body consciousness with the touch, and mental consciousness with your thoughts. So it come in contact and with corresponding consciousness, result in the feeling or Vedana. This is the fruition of the result from the contact of the external and internal sense spheres. This is fixed. You cannot escape that because you perceive it as either happiness or unhappiness or neutral feelings, followed by pure perception, sanya, and then followed by biased perception, sanya cetana. That's very important because now this is sanya cetana based on your own ego or self-concept, result in craving, tanha, and disturbing thought, vitakka, and obsessive thought, vichara. You end up with suffering. In fact, neuroscientists also found that when you perceive an image through your eyes, go through the optic tract, go to the visual pathway to the back part of your brain, in the visual center in the back of your head, of your brain, in the occipital lobe, as through electrical impulse and generate an image similar to what you see outside. And the feedback loop is 5 times stronger than to the midbrain, from the back part of your head, the brain to the midbrain. 5 times stronger than an incoming pathway because of this biased perception that is activated in your brain through a sense of self. And it's also true in the left part of the slide when you see like a house, a car, a computer, or iPhone, your brain perceives it as such object, and then it realizes it's yours. Put the I tag there. It's always yours, or you want to be yours. You generate a self-image hologram or biased perception. In fact, it might be similar from other people's belonging. You thought it's yours. Something like that could be another phenomenon. So you generate a self-image hologram. And this is Professor Damasio, head of neurology department of Iowa, stated that in parallel with generating mental pattern of an object, the brain also generates a sense of self in the act of knowing. But the Buddha didn't say that. As you can see on the right side of the slide, it's sequential. The Buddha see it as pure perception first before it generate biased perception, which is basically generating mental pattern for an object. The brain also generates a sense of self in the act of knowing. But it is sequential, not parallel, as neuroscientists were saying. So there's some hope to block it, not allow it to happen. So no craving to commit any action or karma to please your phantom ego or self-image hologram. As what when you don't see the true nature of things, you be biasly perceive, end up with craving, disturbing thought, obsessive thought, and commit action or karma to please this phantom ego or self-image hologram, which is the second noble truth of craving for sensual desire, liking or disliking, which is cause of suffering in the Four Noble Truths. So there's hope that the Buddha found out that one can stop the process with mindfulness and self-awareness, or mindful awareness, stop at the pure perception, sanya parisutti, รู้ซื่อ pure perception without causing biased perception, or sanya chetana. So no resolve craving and no commitment into any karma or action. So mindful awareness become an important part in Buddhism. Allow you to realize the truth, freeing you from suffering, end of suffering as Nirodha, or Nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness. So as stated, that a life form consists of a person, consists of five skandha, form, including body, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. Feeling, perception, thought formation, and consciousness. Those three are mental activities of feeling, perception, and thought formation, which we can track them down, because consciousness itself is formless, difficult to perceive. So when you're exposed to the sixth sense sphere, you perceive things as endearing and pleasing, when it's delightful or make you happy. But through mindful awareness, you can perceive it correctly with pure perception, with perceptual processing, with Vedana and Sanya, Savasang Vedana, feeling neutral, normal, and sanya parisuddhi is pure perception. So it's active and neutral in your perception. It's pure perception without bias, and so there's no craving. But lack of mindful awareness, one would perceive things with biased perception, craving, and disturbing thought and obsessive thought. It's in the conceptual processing because of sanya and sanya cetana. You have biased perception, not pure perception. It's basically because of your bias, sankhara, this thought formation arises from that. So it's result in craving. Craving arises and sustained through unawareness. Lack of mindful awareness is unawareness. You perceive it biased perception. Is passive and fixed and condition you mental into the thought formation, sankhara. Is passive and biased when you perceive things. So suffering or dukkha, there are three main types of suffering described. First one is suffering of suffering, dukkha, dukkata. Suffering that follows is conditioned. It's the feeling of physical and mental pain that occur naturally, sappava dukkha, such as illness, fatigue, hunger, grief, is a suffering that is felt directly. Like some of them you may not have pain, but it's you suffer through birth, as an infant, become a toddler, adolescence, and then young man, middle-aged man, old man, and death. Like different chapters of your life, you go through such pain and suffering through your life until you die. No one can escape that. The second type of suffering is suffering of change, viparinama, dukkha, suffering caused by changes. When happiness or something good is changed from such nature, it makes you suffer. Lost happiness, loss of loved ones, separation from what used to be, suffering caused by the variability of things such as illness. And the third one is the most important one, suffering of conditioning. Sankhara dukkha is suffering stemming from conditioning by your thoughts, emotions, bias, like through sanya cetana, as mentioned earlier. It is suffering rooted in dependent arising, being manipulated and changed by mental impulse or thought conditioning, sankhara. This is the one you need to realize and get rid of. Such stuff, to see it unbiasedly, free you from the biased thoughts. Need to get rid of this sankhara dukkha, suffering of conditioning, is through dependent arising. So in short, these three types of suffering encompass the suffering that occurs in everyday life, from physical and mental pain to suffering caused by the change and impermanence of all things, which follow the three universal marks of existence of impermanence, unstable, imperfection, unbearable, and not selfless in nature, uncontrollable. When you see it, it results in insight, seeing true nature of things as they really are. That these three universal marks govern everything in the universe, except Nirvana, which is beyond the thing in the universe. Start with ignorance, not seeing the truth, generate mental impulse, tainted your mind, mental consciousness, create nama rupa, imagination, it taint your sixth sense sphere, ayenos, tongue, body, mind. Contact feeling corrupted, result in craving, clinging to the thought, becoming your thought, birthing your thought, writing your thought, and then ceasing sorrow, meditation, suffering, disappears. Unawareness arises in this cycle, and I was born. But when awareness arises, it destroyed its but selfless, and realize Nirvana. You seize this cycle, destroy the cycle, the 12 linking chains. No more ignorance, not be a fool anymore because you awaken, you're aware. Unawareness disappear. So type suffering in Buddhism also described as constant suffering, like Dukkha, constant suffering. Sappava, like Sappava Dukkha, you're born with it. You face it every day. Suffering, you may not feel the pain, but you're facing such suffering. Suffering that exists in the nature of life, it cannot be avoided, including birth, old age, pain, death, include hidden constant suffering, such as breathing, blinking, that you need to do it to sustain life. You may not have pain, but it's constant suffering that you have to face. Second type is temporary suffering, tukchon, pakinakatuk. It's suffering that occurs from time to time, or this suffering that come from time to time, such as sadness, lamentation, anxiety, frustration, separation from your loved ones, or disappointment. You may be tearful, sad, and so on from this temporary suffering. The third type is called akantuka dukkha. The word akantuka suffering, it doesn't appear in the Tipitaka or the original teaching of the Buddha, or in the classical text, original text of the Buddha teaching, or any major of official Buddhist scripture. It came later on through the commentary, the Atthakatha. If we consider the meaning of the word akantuka, which means visitor or guest, then akantuka suffering can refer to suffering that occurs from time to time, or a suffering that come in and passes. It's not a constant suffering, such as hunger, the need to urinate or defecate, and so on. Why does one suffer? One suffers because of one's own thought, one's own thought, biased thoughts, embedded with greed and the delusion. But the Buddha said that's not the true nature of the mind. Mind itself is luminous, but tainted with transitory mental impurities. Transitory, that means it's not the true nature of it. It's something that transit through, like home as a guest, but it home in because you don't see it. Unawareness allow it to home in, but with mindfulness awareness, you can get rid of the transient guests that came by. Get rid of this greed-hatred delusion. Get rid of this sneaky thought, biased thoughts. witness the true nature of the mind, which is luminous, neutral, equanimous. So all phenomena are not worth clinging to. That's the Buddha teaching. You can practice 24/7 mindfulness meditation through practicing 4 foundations of mindfulness to cultivate mindfulness self-awareness consistently with constant effort or perseverance with self-awareness or sampajanya and mindfulness or sati to cultivate self-awareness and mindfulness constantly. Self-awareness is wisdom in action. When you cultivate it, it generates into insight wisdom. And mindfulness is self-remembrance. You cultivate by practicing constantly. Sometimes it's stated as ardent, alert, and mindful at your body, feeling, mind, mental phenomena, the 4 aspects of life that everyone dwells in. To get rid of desiring, undesiring nature that arises at the body, feeling, mind, mental phenomena. And you come to witness the true nature of things. A thing follows the 3 universal marks of existence embedded in there, the true nature of things, as they really are. Impermanence, unstable, imperfection, unbearable, and selfless in nature, uncontrollable. It leads to insight wisdom. See that nothing worth clinging to. See the burden of clinging to this self-image, self-concept. It's but self-image hologram, not truly there, but you're carrying the burden there. Something that is not truly existing become your burden that you carry around. You become disenchanted, discerned, dispassionate, and liberate, release from suffering through this practicing these 4 foundations of mindfulness. To gain insight, wisdom, and free yourself from suffering. Buddha also stated, this is in the book of Path of Purification, Visuddhimagga, stated, for there is suffering, but no sufferer. Doing exists, although there is no doer. Liberation happens, but no liberated person. Although there is a path, there is no goer. From Visuddhimagga 5:13 by Buddha Kongsak. หลวงปู่ดูล หลวงพ่อคำเขียน also stated ไม่เป็นอะไรกับอะไร not being anything to anything when you come in contact to your 6 sense spheres. หลวงปู่ดูล stated that whenever encountering the mind, kill the mind. Whenever encountering the knower, kill the knower, because there's no self, no true permanent self. To achieve ultimate reality, ultimate purity. หลวงปู่ดูล Atulo. To attain Nirvana, ultimate purity, one needs to get rid of this ego, the self-concept. Zen Buddhism also says, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him, because it's your mind generates the Buddha image in your this hidden self-concept. In fact, in reality, there's no self-concept or self-image hologram. Pure mind is void of such thing. It's voidness, emptiness. merge with the pure mind, merge with the emptiness of the universe, or the background of the universe, become one, called Nirvana. When you realize such the truth, the ultimate truth. And you can end suffering, free yourself from suffering in that way.